All right, welcome to Drawing a Perspective. This particular video is going to walk you through drawing a perspective on a particular wall. And on that wall, we have a 10-foot high ceiling height. We're going to draw it of the south wall. It gives you information as to the window, sill height, and the height of the opening itself. When you get done with drawing, this will be in a second video. We're just going to start out with some basic framing. Those are details that you'd add in as you draw the items. We're going to plot that grid. This will be our first step. We'll plot the grid using a VP of 5 feet 0 inches above finished floor and 3 feet over from the west wall. I'll show you that on the plan. And then set your MP 10 feet away from that back wall. And so remember, when we were using the MP, we were always going to add that technique of adding 2 just to help so we avoid distortion. So we actually set that MP at 12 feet. So let's take a look at the floor plan that we're going to be working on. In the packet, it gives you the room that we'll be drawing. And this room has a chaise lounge and a side table, which in a second part we'll draw the items into that view. But for right now, we're going to focus on making the grid. Now, one of the things that is very helpful to do that we've talked about before is when you make an actual grid on the floor plan itself. This gives you the ability to count boxes rather than measuring every time, especially when you're trying to get to these different corners. It's a much faster process. Now, according to the directions, if we go back to that to set our grid, I'll just fold this in half. We're going to draw the south wall. So here's north. So in fact, we're going to draw this south wall looking this direction. It identifies again that the ceiling height is 10 feet. The window here is 36 inches above the finished floor, so that would be the sill height, the bottom of the window itself, and then the opening will be 42 inches. The main thing of setting our grid is just that we're paying attention to this 10-foot high ceiling. And then to set our VP, we're going to be 5 feet above the floor. We'll do that when we get on the grid. We'll set our floor line and then we'll go up from there. And then we're going to be 3 feet over from the west wall. So 3 feet over. This would be, and again, I always encourage you to mark it here. We've got south, north. This would be east and west. So in looking at this way, the way we'll view it, it says in the directions that we are going to be 3 feet over from this west wall. We are in 1/4 inch scale. So I'll set this over 1, 2, 3. So we're somewhere along here, like we've just walked into the room. Now we have to figure out how far we're standing back from that south wall that we're drawing. And it says that we're 10 feet. As I just mentioned before, we'll add that extra 2 feet just to help give us a bit more grid and help with any distortion we might experience. And then we have the 12-foot set as the MP. So we'll go ahead and from this distance back then, the idea is that we'd be standing right about here. And then we set our actual MP, technically be out the door, but you're really just doing that to help give yourself more room on the grid. So we've got, I'm reading it this way so you can see the scale, but here's 10, here's 0. So you're standing 10 feet back. So this in fact is right where we're standing. Okay, so our idea is to go ahead and show what we're going to see. Now this gives you the idea of the cone of vision. It doesn't necessarily cut off at that, so remember, we'll do the grid coming along the side as much as we can. But we're standing right here, according to this, to give you an idea. I wanted to take a moment to grab some colors to do the different planes to help with the difference. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start with that. So the first thing we know from the directions, and you have the directions in front of you, so I'm gonna go ahead and sometimes it may go off the screen, but I'll try to state them, and then if you need to reference your sheet, you can do that. But when we have it, we'll put it in the center. I've already put the grid paper down. I've put a piece of paper over top of it, and I'm gonna go ahead and set that back wall plane, and I'm gonna follow the grid here, right, so that we're facing that south wall, and we were standing right 3 feet over. So 1, 2, 3, we're standing 3 feet over, and the 10 feet back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so you can see me having that grid makes it pretty easy to understand the view that I'm seeing, or where I am, or count any of the parts. And again, this was something I did before I started the video, was took this plan, did the 1 foot sections. Now here's what's interesting. This room is not an exact even number of feet. So when I did the grid, I decided to start with my whole foot marks on this side, because this is where I'll need it the most because of my items being here. I will show you in the grid how I'll accommodate. This has ended up being 6 inches. And I'll show you how we'll accommodate for something like that. I'll draw to the whole feet, but then you just do your corner a little bit different when you're doing your MP and those lines across the floor, but I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go across the back, and the first thing that we'll identify is the width of the room. And that is 10 feet 6. So again, I'm starting with my whole foot boxes this direction. It makes the most sense because those items there, I'll go over to this wall when I check on my grid to do all of my measurements. Okay, so we had 10 foot 6. I could count the boxes, but I'm gonna go ahead and mark them as relatively in the center as I can. Here's our 10 foot 6. So that indicates the width of the back wall, and we know from our directions that we had a 10 foot high ceiling height. That's our back wall plane. We're drawing that south wall, and we've measured out what the width of the room is. Again, looking at this one, it was 10 foot 6, and we know from the directions that the ceiling height was 10 feet high. So when we look at this, we'll just double check before we move on that that is the 10 foot 6 by 10 feet high. Wonderful. Okay, this is our baseline along here, and we will need it to draw. I'm just going to do mine in pencil. Drag that across. And we know from what we wrote before, I'm going to set that MP at 12 feet. And 12 feet will come over from this line over here. So we'll set the MP over here. So that's the MP. The other thing, and then we'll do that across, is our horizon line, which really goes across the whole thing for the view, but I really only need it over there. It says that the VP is going to be 5 feet above the finished floor, and 3 feet over from that west wall. So remember, this was our west, this was our east, and this was our south. So I'm going to look at 3 feet over. Right. Now, because the box is a little bit harder now because I have to go halves, I'm literally just going to measure it, and I'm just holding it up to one of those lines to make sure I'm holding it straight. So there's 3 feet over, and then it's 5 feet up off the ground. Right, so we know we're on that line. All right. right, and that's our VP, set at 3 feet over from the west wall and 5 feet up off the floor. Next thing I'll do is make those lines that I think make it kind of exciting and quick view, is to take your VP and go from the corner here, making sure that it goes right through the center. I'll try not to cover my hand over with that. Right, so we'll go right dead center through there, bring the line out. Now what's going to be interesting on this view is we're relatively tight up along that wall, so these two sides will look quite a bit different in their angle. So again, I'm going right through the center, making sure it goes right through the medium. If I don't, that's where I may get off on my marks. Do that again, make sure it goes right through that middle. Okay, and then we'll do this again here, running the medium on the top of the triangle so that I have a fighting chance of being pretty accurate here and running along the top. Okay, all right, and some of it may end up cutting out. Let me just do a little bit. If I get a little bit more on there, there we go. Okay, then coming this direction here. Go out that way, and then I'm just taking it out on the paper as far as I can. I want to leave the camera close enough so you can see, but that just took it all the way off to the edge of the paper. And in fact, I think with that one I'll go a little bit darker. I think my Sharpie's getting a little bit dry. I'll just take it and cut it through. Okay, so now we have the view of the south wall with the west wall here. We set it 3 feet over. Here is the east wall, and again, because we're standing farther over this side, that's why the angle is so significantly different than over here. All right, and then what we'll do is that same technique of our MP, but what's different here is because we had that 6-inch, it threw things off a little bit. So now instead of really using the grid, I'm going to mark it with my architectural scale and make sure that I'm doing the 1 foot increments exactly. So put that right in the middle of that medium. Here's 11 feet, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All right. Okay, so for accuracy, I'm going to make sure that when I come through, it's right in the dead center of that MP, and then right through the dead center of that mark on the floor. Check it back and forth in case things move. Right through the center here, here's our first mark. Going to do the MP to the 2 foot mark along the floor line. Make sure it's right dead center, and make my mark on that line that we established there. Next is going to be the MP to the center of that mark. MP, foot 4. Now we're on foot 5, or 5 feet, I guess I should say. There's that mark to the center, 5. And what's good to do is keep check and make sure that this distance is gradually getting bigger before you even spend the time drawing those lines across. So here we go to the MP, right through the middle here, like so. MP, right through the middle. Oops, gotta pull it down a little bit. Through the middle, like so. Then we've got through the middle of my mark, through the middle, here we are, through the middle, yep. And when you do these, do them as lines, not as dots, because it sort of makes it almost like an X marks the spot. You'll know where to draw this line to go this direction. That's important to, I would say, as a technique to keep accuracy there too. So we did that one. I'm on foot number 11. Again, just playing for the thickness of the medium right through the center of my mark, and then going back, and just in case I move my mark here. Okay, there's that 11, and then of course 12 is just straight up and down pretty much, because that's where your grid will end. Okay, so now I will do the floor line with the pencil. I'm checking my mark here on the line, but then dragging it this way. You'll do better line quality if you're pulling rather than trying to push. But I always do the mark first just to make sure that it's right in the middle and I've got the bar in the right spot. But then that's why I don't draw it from this way, because that would be pushing. I'm gonna pull it from this way. All I'm doing is going in and just making sure that that's right in the middle before I drag my line across, and just hold that in place. You don't need to put the brake on. It's not like it's at a super steep angle to make it move. So right through the middle, come across here, right through here, like so. Okay. There's, I think this was foot number 11, dragging it across here, and then on this mark here, and bringing it across there. All right, we go ahead, and I'm gonna just make sure you can see how far I went, because I'm not gonna do much up there with the ceiling. Okay. All right. Now, what I'll do is I'll keep all the floor to be in pencil, and then I'll start going with colors up the side. But every bit of this gets smaller, and then a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger. It doesn't go small, then big, and then small again. Just make sure that it gradually, these spaces get bigger and bigger. All right, so now I can't really use that bar anymore. I'm gonna go from the VP to my 6-inch mark here along the floor. And then we'll go from this spot here from the VP. Make sure it's right in the middle, right, so that we have it really accurate. So I'm going to go to that 1 foot mark here, bring that down, 1 foot mark, bring it down, and then this is where, let's see, I'm going to start going on top of it. All right, through the VP to the 1 foot mark, 1 foot. So now we've got the floor grid. Now we'll go ahead and start creating our side walls. Now the walls are perpendicular to the floor, so I'm going to use this straight edge to go through the center and bring the line down. It's always going to be square to the floor. So go down, hitting my mark right where it hits that line. Right through that center. Line. so we got that there. And then this one, so you can see how this is going along here on that mark, and then I'm just taking it all the way up to the ceiling line. Okay, so when we get done, we have that full view all the way from there up to the top. Do the same thing with the side walls. And I'm looking at the 1 foot marks as we go across. Center point to there. That's going to be just right in the middle, right? Because that was our horizon line. That was our VP up off of the floor. So the VP to that foot mark. Then we'll come here. Now we've got that. I'm 2 feet up off of the floor now. And then I'm going to do that last foot again through the VP. Over to the line over here. Okay, that takes care of this wall over on this side, and now we'll work on the wall over here. And in this case, I'm going to find, let's see if I can find a different color. Get this to work. Yeah, that should work. Yep, looks like it'll work. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'll do the vertical lines of the wall again right through the middle of where that line meets, right through there. Bring our lines down. And find out where that point is and then bring it down, right? So I'm looking at that point there, making sure it's right on it, right through here, right through here. Here. Alright, so when we get done, to kind of see the height of it, that is our grid. Do the walls, and we'll have our grid set. For our purposes, we're not going to do anything with the ceiling, but if you did want to check how yours lined up, you could take it and could connect the 1 foot line of this side over to the 1 foot line of this side and see if they line up, and they do. So that way I know that my grid is accurate, and you could do that for all the same, but time-wise, we're not focusing on that, so there's really not a point in doing it. So I'm going to do all of my 1 foot marks again, making sure it goes right through the center. Again, I'm pulling my medium rather than dragging it or pushing it, I guess, the opposite way. Just pulling it towards me here. Okay, so I've got the VP. And I'll go right to that 1 foot mark over here. All right, I'm going to slide my bar up, get it out of the way. Okay. do that at the 1 foot mark here. Do that basically as the horizon line again. All right, and there's your grid. All right, so we got the grid. And there'll be the next video in which we'll draw the video, but this ends it for now.